Hello and welcome to Natalie Saunderson Yoga. If you are new to this channel, please do say a big hello, and this is really an opportunity for us to all connect, not only just with our physical practice of yoga, but in the many other aspects of life that tend to come in if you have a yoga practice. And this means that there is suddenly a part of you that is much more aware of this very multifaceted universe that we live in. And one of my personal tools that I often will use when I'm working with people, clients, whether I'm doing a healing session and it offers me some insight, is to refer to the body of astrology. And there's a purpose within astrology that is really about taking the themes of whatever influence from those planets and those energies, taking those themes and reflecting on how it basically interacts with our own nature, our own lives. And for a lot of years, I actually felt very attached to the specifics of astrology. I was very kind of nerdy about the science of it and the precision and the mathematics. And, you know, as I get older, there is, for one, several different versions of astrology out there. What I'm referring to is kind of a more broad Western version. Now, Vedic astrology, which is a lot more precise, uses a different chart to extract your design, your chart. The reason that I am not specific to the Vedic lineage anymore is because for me, astrology is the most useful when it's there as a reflective tool, not a precise roadmap that I then become attached to the details of. So this relationship with how we relate to all these different energies, planets, times of year, it has this opportunity to still reflect, okay, how am I going to respond to this energy? So for me, I've chosen to not be necessarily as attached to the specifics around astrology, but to really also use the information that I know exists, and then to check into my own internal guidance, my own system, and say, how relative is this to my personal design, my life, this moment in my life? And that is how I teach and share astrology updates, okay? So I just want to preface that. When I think of Taurian energy, and it's the second house, right? It rules the second house, it's ruled by Venus. It's not unlike the energy that I feel when I am associating or in my, let's say, Libran qualities. And Taurus has a very specific purpose. Okay, so it has this follow-up from Aries, which is basically the first zodiac sign. It's also the fire starter. It's known as the beginning, right? And when we begin something, we need to have a certain amount of drive, of commitment, of heat, of direction, of commitment. And this energy of Aries, I feel like it's such a beautiful, almost like a symphony, the way that each house represents another part of our lives, another part of ourselves, because that's really all astrology is. It's a reflection of our true nature. And it discusses different parts of who we are and how we're built. And some of us are built a little bit more this way, a little bit more that flavor. And Aries energy is very essential because we need that to actually commit and begin something. We need that kind of oomph to, you know, in the cycle of life, Satana Ma, right? Birth, middle, death, rebirth. There's this constant renewal energy on the planet that we are all a part of, whether we wake up every day and remember that and feel that deeply in ourselves, that we are just a part of the story or not. We still have to understand that what we are experiencing in our day-to-day lives is not necessarily about getting somewhere. There's no linear path, right? There's a constant cycle that we are a part of, whether it's seasonal or hormonal or times of our life, seasons of our life, roles that we play more of in our life. And when we understand this, what I find so fascinating is that it actually removes us from being attached to the idea that we are getting somewhere, right? Because when we were young, a lot of the conditioning that most of us were taught is that we need to become something. We need to become someone. We need to be respectful. We want to be useful in society, and all of those things I'm agreeing with, but the way that it was taught and encouraged to very young, impressionable people was that they needed to go out and become something they weren't already. They needed to learn to perform. They needed to learn to strive. And astrology, for me, the reason that I use it to help people really return to owning who they are is because a lot of aspects of ourselves, whether they're extreme strengths or challenges that we keep repeating, right, or we keep interacting with, we keep for some reason coming back to that same theme, It's all there for our betterment. It's all there to help us grow. And there are no mistakes. So no matter what kind of chart is in front of me, it's really just that person's opportunity to dive even deeper. Why would I choose this chart? Why would I choose this design? It's like a wardrobe. Why would I choose this design to work with? And really, you're the only person who gets to decide how invested you are in working those angles, using your gifts, meeting yourself in your main challenges, because we all have a lot of things to share with each other that naturally we're good at, and we all have shadow elements and aspects of our chart that are really there for us to pause, learn, reshape, reprogram, integrate, and then continue to grow. And this is the beauty of astrology. There's always going to be points of restriction in a chart, and in the whole zodiac sign, there's restriction, there's expansion. So when we understand that, we can also look at, okay, seasonally, if Aries is the fire starter, and it's the leader, and it's the committer, and it's the, the go-getter, what is Taurus? Taurian energy is very much to counter that. So what do I mean by that? It means that if we were to live in a world where we were all influenced continuously by Aries energy, which we kind of are in a lot of North American countries, we would be fairly high flying. Our nervous systems would be constantly going. We would be in overdrive a lot. We would be in this overworking, trying to get somewhere, work, go mode. And we would be not really able to allow our bodies the proper integration period, the proper rest. Then we have Taurus comes in and says, let's look at this, let's rest. And Taurus is one of the most well-respected signs for stability. Now, this doesn't always mean that it's linked to house and home. Stability, stable, physically stable, present, embodied, tuned into the physical. But if we just thought of it as simply, okay, well, now we're kind of slowed down and getting back into our body, it's so much more about that. There's this nuance in the Taurian energy, which is, okay, well, we could do this really quickly. Aries energy, let's just get it done. I know the direction I'm going in, so just let me roll with it. But Taurus said, let's do this well. Let's do this, let's refine this. Let's do this in a way that really allows us to cultivate an appreciation for the way that I'm doing my life currently. And this means looking at things that I always like to say, let's bring it back to the basics. Your life does not need to be filled to the brim with things that you need to feel supported. It does not need to have so many elements that you have no days off. It does not need to have all the obligations that you feel are ever asked of you and zero time for yourself to just be in your own company and kind of listening to how you feel that day. Taurian energy asks you to create in a way that feels nourishing, because really that coming home is not really about a house and stability financially, even though it does lean into all aspects of what we need as a person to live here and not struggle, which is financially, physically stable, right? Health-wise, it's having a roof over our head. It's having the tools and the necessities around us to carry out the roles that we're needing. And so this, in its essence, is taking us back, not to our survival mode basics, but it's saying, how can I put myself or my life into a bit of structure? How can I set myself up to feel supported? Because without that feeling or component, we can't create very much, very fast, very far. If we don't have that sense of stability, we're like a live wire all over the place. And the next month, right, moving into kind of a more air sign, this is going to ask us to then go into like a more open channeled type of energy. Let me receive information, let me download information, let me intuit information, let me dream. Taurian energy is very practical, it's very visceral, it's very physical, it wants to experience. And because of this is fabulous before we expand our journey and we continue into the year, right, with whatever our priorities or our projects or our focus is. How am I doing physically, mentally, emotionally, here, now? Does my health need my attention? Does my financial reality need my attention? Does Does my sense of being able to appreciate this journey, right? Or do I feel like I am just on some type of hamster wheel? If that's the feeling that you have at the moment where things are just happening to you, around you all the time, let yourself pause and stop. Let yourself take the breaks. Let yourself remove some of the responsibility. And I promise you, it is possible to remove some of the responsibility because our lives are created, curated, and scheduled by us. And even if you feel, well, that's nice of you to say, you're sitting in Bali, there are always so many things pulling at my focus or could be part of something I take on. And I'm very strategic. I'm very clear about what feels right. What feels right for right now. Maybe something's coming and I know it's going to be something I put more energy into, but it's not necessarily the now. And if it's not a now issue or priority, then it doesn't need to be running on a loop in the back of our heads, right? So we become we become very, very aware of our physical, okay? Our physical, how are we doing when we stop the motion of the day? How are we doing when we look at our sleep, our rest, and our ability to restore? How are we doing when we think of our relationship to food and the earth? How much nourishment are we having? Our friendships, same thing. When we connect, do we feel supported? This is a really important one. We can say all we want, that we want like-minded community, but are you prioritizing deeply connective relationships, or are you just around people that you're naturally around and you kind of assume that's normal to feel not that connected to them or not that like-minded? Yeah, because at the end of the day, Taurus energy is a very strong earthy pull. It's very grounded. It's very much like real. It's practical. It doesn't have any fluff or desire to pretend. And this is what's refreshing about Taurian energy. They can be quite blunt. It can be quite obvious, but it's not a sign that's meant to be any type of dramatic. It's actually being blunt so that you can return to a place of balance, and the way that you experience your life is quite clean and clear. Okay, so there is not this moving in all directions type of attention span, but it's very much about coming back to what is happening here, now, stabilizing, because we're moving further into the year now, and most of us have had a very varied experience in 2025, and we can worry about the rest of the year, or we can say, okay, what do I need for myself so that I feel at the deepest layer of my honest answer here? What do I need more of? What do I need less of? What would I like to invite in to actually just let's say for the hell of it, for the hell of you feeling good, because the Venus energy gives us energy because we're actually enjoying our lives. And this isn't talked about enough. In the whole world of wellness and healing, it's not always about how much work you do. It's allowing yourself to return without taking it to an extreme of only chasing what makes you feel good. Reminding yourself that your life is not a struggle. Life is not supposed to be a struggle. Okay, the reason that we're in this state with so many people feeling a sense of struggle is that because they're carrying and they're in this mentality that too many things need to get done at once, and there's a lot of pressure behind that belief. There's a lot of built up tension around what needs to happen, usually out of some kind of fear, right? So this not only creates a lot of pressure internally, mentally, this creates a lot of anxiety and friction in the physical body, in your frequency, and how deeply you can feel yourself relax and trust. Trust the space around you, trust nature, trust the timing, divine timing, your timing, the world's timing, all of it. And when we stop long enough to connect to that, we actually realize, like you do when you've been sick for a few days, life is actually quite simple. And when we connect it on that level of simplicity with gratitude, appreciation, reverence, intention, and then we actually are able to return to whatever speed, or whatever kind of whatever we're working with or on, whatever we're building, whatever our priorities are, we return to that pace, that quickening, once we know we have a very solid base. And this is what I encourage you to do this month. If you need to, let the noise of the world get a little further from you and focus on how you're doing. On day-to-day, practical, everyday layer, how are your relationships? How are you feeling inside yourself? How's your emotional well-being? Where are your thoughts at? How's your health doing? How's your sleep? How's your food? And really returning to this, okay, if I don't like any of those answers, what can I do and what am I inviting in so that I can support myself before I'm able to support anybody else? I hope that was helpful, and if you want more of these, you can dive into my Patreon community. I look forward to hearing you, and if you haven't already, subscribe from the button below. Take care for now.